Hello, I'm Larry Freezy from All Weather Attack Squadron VMA 533. We're talking intruders, and I'm here to tell you about something that happened 48 years ago tonight. Richard Nixon had just been re-elected, and he launched something called Operation Linebacker 2. Now remember that he won his re-election by the biggest landslide victory that anybody had ever had up to that time. His opponent got Massachusetts and the District of Columbia, and that was a vote of confidence for President Nixon, and it was a message that got sent to the government in Hanoi from the American people. Well, let me take you back. I grew up in South Dakota in the 1940s and 50s, and the first president I remember was Dwight D. Eisenhower, whose vice president for 8 years was Richard Nixon. And these guys had a map of the world, and on it they showed the friendly countries in blue and the communist countries in red. And it was scary because the number of red countries kept increasing. And I, as a boy, remember my mom and dad talking about how it looked like the communists were out to take over the world. And then the Korean War happened during my childhood, and our country lost more than 40,000 troops in that war, which was a war to stop the spread of communism. And then the next thing I know, I'm 25 years old, and I'm in VMA W533 in Chu Lai, South Vietnam, and I'd had 137 successful combat missions, but number 138 didn't go so well. My pilot, Jerry Marvel, Major Jerry Marvel, who when he was a captain in the Marine Corps was Captain Marvel, and so he got the nickname Shaz from Shazam. You remember all that. Well, Shaz and I took a hit on a mission bombing an airfield a little west of Hanoi, and we ejected out of our intruder and wound up spending a little over 5 years in that prison called the Hanoi Hilton. My first 18 months were solitary confinement. And during that time, LBJ made his famous statement, "I shall not seek and I will not accept the nomination of my party." And the results of that were that Richard Nixon became the President of the United States in 1968. Well, I was stoked. I said, this guy knows how these communists think. He'll get this war thing kicked off a dead center, yeah? Well, not really. 4 years go by and I'm still in one of those stinking cells in Hanoi. Well, every once in a while I was in this solitary confinement situation, the Vietnamese would throw something into my cell for me to read, and I'd read it, and I don't know how many times I read their words in their pubs that their goal was to get a victory for their system throughout the world and to eradicate capitalism from the globe. And on one occasion, one of their officers told me in one of their stinking re-education rooms, and I quote him exactly, "Contrary to what we would like to believe, wars are never settled over a conference table. They are always settled on the battlefield. So sit in prison month after month and year after year and let those two thoughts work on your head, that they're out to get a victory for their system throughout the world, and this kind of thing is going to happen on the battlefield. It'll make you pretty proud that you were over there," remember that terminology? "Over there on the team trying to prevent all that." Well, 4 years go by, like I said, I was still sitting there in this prison. But on the night of December 18, 1972, after dark, of course, the skies opened up. The B-52s from the Strategic Air Command, all of the planes from the Tactical Air Command. The Navy had, I think, 6 aircraft carriers in the theater. I think the VMAAW was in Thailand at the time. I don't know to what extent the Marine Corps also participated from there or from aircraft carriers, but everybody came downtown in Hanoi, and if any of you participated in it, I thank you. But I was going to tell you what it was like from that end of things. Like I say, after dark, and the noise was just horrendous. Now, I'm going to tell you about how, this stuff called sensory overload. Let's think about getting it with all 5 senses. Start with the ears. The noise all night long was just horrendous. Just things going off, or SAMs getting launched, or anti-aircraft artillery being shot. There was a lot of noise. And then the light show, every time anything went off or a bomb burst, of course, there's lights going on. I was in a cell at that time with 42 other guys roughly, and we were getting up on top of each other's shoulders because the windows in our cell were way up high. But one guy could stand on the shoulders of somebody else and look out, and man, were we stoked. Here he comes. And like I say, the noise, the light show, the ground shook like about a Richter 9 all night long, and all this stuff, the gun smoke and gun bombs bursting and the fuel to launch SAMs and AAA stuff. There was a smell in the air that was so thick that it would get in your mouth and you could taste it. And I mean, it tasted like going home because just like that guy said, this kind of stuff is settled on the battlefield. He couldn't have been more right. Within 90 days, every one of us was back in the good old USA. It's called Peace Through Superior Firepower. I also call it Freedom Comes from Shock and Awe. But a few years go by, and Ronald Reagan says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And I mention that here quickly because when I hear those words, it always takes me back to everything that I just told you about. And from my childhood, Dwight D. Eisenhower up through the 18th of December 1972. And sometimes I hear the words that the Vietnam War was an ignoble war. And I say, how so? Tell me about it. Yeah, they want to get a victory for their system throughout the world. What it all means to me is that I want to thank every Vietnam vet for adding one of those little epsilons toward the overall goal of tearing down that wall. I want to thank everybody that participated in that war in any old way. I want to thank anybody and everybody that took part in that linebacker 2 strike. And I want to thank everybody who voted in 1972. So, Semper Fi, God bless America, hoorah, and freedom comes from shock and awe. Thanks, guys.